Okay, so I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time today on this asynchronous day to join us. We are going to be doing the third of our presentations for environmental forums for the group BCPS Goes Green, which is a student-led initiative and at the county level designed to reduce the human impact on the environment, our school environment and our school system, and also to promote environmental literacy in our school system as much as we can among our students and our staff. Mr. Lally, you're not muted, I'm just letting you know. So today we have students from Kenwood High School's Environmental Club, and here at our school we named our club Kenwood Environmental Network. You should be able to see it on the screen there. And the reason we called it, instead of calling it network, we call it nestwork, is because our mascot is the bluebird. And the bluebird has a nest, and we actually have some bluebird houses out back at the school. We're trying to help maintain that population. So we did a little play on words there and call it the nestwork. We established our club in 2016 and became a Maryland Green School in 2018, and we're ramping up to recertify in 2022. Today we have a couple of our students are going to present to you about starting seeds at home. We have senior Ashby Gambra, senior Jessie Mae Jumaweed, senior Haley Hilton, and sophomore Sajani Sanders. Before I turn it over to Miss Ashby Gambra, I want to tell you something really cool that Ashby did when she was a freshman. We have a project in our American government class designed around reducing environmental impact on our school grounds, and Ashby asked the question if we could start a composting program in our cafeteria, and instead of throwing our food waste in the dump, we take our food waste and turn it into compost, which is essentially the soil with nutrients that you need to grow plants. And I told her, I don't know why we can't start one. So we started asking questions at the Office of Science and then up to BCPS, and eventually Ashby got an answer. Why not? And so this past year, before the pandemic, Baltimore County piloted, which means we tested the program at two high schools, middle school and an elementary school, and it was very successful. The kids participated, and we literally had thousands of pounds of food that actually went to a composting company instead of going to the landfill. So the reason I bring it up is because Ashby won't tell you about that because she doesn't like to toot her own horn. But it's a good example of how a student can have a huge impact just by saying, hey, I've got an idea, and following through with it. It wasn't a staff member. It wasn't a teacher. It wasn't, somebody at Baltimore County who started it. It was this student that you're about to meet. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Miss Ashby Gambra to get us started.
Hello, everyone, and today we'll be talking you through how you can turn a seed into a full-blown plant at your very own house. And overall, it's just a fun and easy skill you can have now and carry into the future. And this is perfect for the climate we're in. Since you're stuck at your own house, might as well learn how to grow your own food or flowers that can attract pollinators and help the vegetation outside. Now, the other important parts of learning how to plant is that it helps environmental sustainability, and that just basically means it helps us maintain the natural resources we have so that way they don't run out and deplete in the near future. And it also cuts down on transportation and emissions, which is like the bad gases and chemicals as a result of the fossil fuel transportation we have now. And it cuts down on that because it cuts on the transportation from the farms to the markets and then the markets to your house for having to pick up the plants. And so the topics that we will be covering are everything from the supplies you'll need to how to prepare your pots for planting, to some tips and tricks on how to plant successfully, how to care for your seedlings, and an overview of what Ken has done over the last few years. And then we're just going to end this off by answering any last minute or lingering questions you'll have after our presentation. So with transitioning to supplies, you'll need the first supply is a pot, and you may automatically think ceramic pots, but it can be just about anything from egg cartons to Keurig cups to yogurt cups, solo cups. Even the eggshells that you see in the picture to the right can also be used as a starting pot, as long as you have holes at the bottom to help with drainage for water, you can use it as a pot. Now for the second supply you'll need is soil. Now this can be seed starting soil or potting soil, and you can find this at Home Depot, Lowe's, or Walmart, so just about anywhere. And then for the third supply you'll need seeds, the seeds themselves. Now the seed packs are actually very cheap, under $2. So in terms of cost, that isn't too much of a problem. And then this next supply I'm showing you is optional, but it is cling wrap. And that's to help with the germination process, which we'll go more into more detail with later in the presentation. So to move on to preparing the pots, we'll have Jesse talk you through that.
Hey guys, I'm Jessie and I will be demonstrating how to prepare your pots for seed planting. Today, I'll be using egg cartons. I originally have these big cartons, but I've prepared this small portion since this is also my first time planting at home and I don't want to overwhelm myself and neither should you. Okay, so first step, get a pen or a pencil and we need something pointy to poke a hole in the carton. I'm going to use a colored pencil. Any color is fine. Pick your favorite so you're going to like it more, the activity more. Okay, so the cartons that I'm preparing right now have circles at the bottom like this one. So what we're going to do is just poke a hole in the center like this and another one and so on, just like that. So why do we need to poke holes, you might ask? This is a very important step for two things, for drainage and irrigation. We need drains in our pots because we don't want our soil to be sopping wet. A very wet soil can cause root rot and eventually the seeds will die. Basically, we don't want them drowning and the drainage will help to solve that problem. I mentioned irrigation earlier, and this is just watering the soil. Since we are in the earliest stage of our seed planting process, watering the soil from above can flush the seeds out. Therefore, we're going to need a shallow container like this one or this, so that we can irrigate it from the bottom. Now, this container is from a takeout, and if you have them in your storage cabinets, please don't throw them away. If you don't have this kind of container with a cover, you can use a cling wrap to cover the top after we put some seeds in. The next step is to fill your pots with soil. So right now I'm using a seed starter mix, like this one. And you can buy this at your Walmart or your local Walmart or Home Depot, Lowe's, or at a local farmer's market. Since we are growing plants from seeds, this is the better option than the standard potting soil because it's finer and lighter and making it easier for tiny seedlings and their roots to grow in. The third step is pre-moistening the soil. As you can see, I have this one prepared right here. And we're just gonna put some soil in our cartons. Don't be afraid to get messy. You can clean it up later. So right here, right now, we're filling up the pot. We're gonna add some water in it and pack it firmly. Just like this. Pack it. And I'm also using warm water because that's what it says on the instructions for doing this. Can you see what I'm doing? It's right here. And if you're packing it Just remember not to pack too much too firmly because we want our seeds to breathe. So why are we pre-moistening the soil? This is a very important step because we are setting the right environment for our seeds to grow in, and we don't want our soil to be dry. And skipping this step will not help your seeds to grow. And also, this will save us from watering from above later on after we put some seeds in. And there you have it. We're done prepping our pots. Now, Haley will discuss the next steps while I continue to demonstrate. Take it away, Haley.
Thank you so much, Jessie. So first, you should choose a plant that is good for the indoors, such as herbs, tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and most flowers. Here, Jessie has some flowers and peppers that she's going to plant. She's going to plant the flowers. And after prepping your pots, as she discussed, you can look at the back of the packet, which tells you all about the depth to plant the seed and when and where to plant it when it comes to that later. And after you check, you should use a hole to poke a hole in the soil about the size, about the depth that it says to on the back of the packet, and then place the seeds into the hole, lightly cover with soil, and then pack it softly. As a tip, the bigger the seed, the farther it will go into the soil, and the smaller the seed, the less you will use. So for smaller seeds, you would be planting farther up in the soil, and you would use a bunch of like 6 to 10, depending on how small they are. And bigger seeds, you can use 2 to 3 per hole. And you can pat that down once you've planted them. And optionally, you can cover it with plastic wrap to make a greenhouse effect, which helps to keep the moisture and humidity in and helps seeds grow. Once Jessie is done with her seed planting, she's going to close the top so that it has a cover to keep the moisture in, as we just talked about. And as soon as you see the plant grow out of the soil, you should take the cover off because you need it to be able to breathe and have a lot of light. Now, some seeds can be planted directly into the ground, so make sure that you pay attention to the back of the packet. And now Sajani is going to talk about the most important parts of planting, which is after you've planted.
When you're planting, there's there's 3 things that you need to make sure you have: sunlight, water, and temperature. These are super important. If you don't have one of these 3 things, your planting will not go well. So starting with sunlight, you need to find a sunny window where it is warm. You want to make sure this window has constant sunlight coming in through pretty much like all parts of the day. You don't want your sunlight coming in for like 2 hours and then going away, because then your plant won't get enough. You want to make sure it's warm. So pretty much room temperature where your house is at. It can be just make sure to keep your plant indoors until like April 15th, which is when like the frost. We usually don't really have frost around here around that time. You need water. Make sure to water at the base of the plant. When you water at the leaves, it won't really do much. But when you water at the base, the roots will soak up all of that water and get all those nutrients, and the plant will grow. And remember, keep your plant indoors. So there's what we call a germinating seed. That basically means that the seed is just barely breaking the soil. So in this video right here, there's like a real time kind of time lapse of a seed starting to germinate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Woodward, but that first root is called a tut root. Yes.
Taproot. That's called the taproot.
Taproot. My apologies. So it's called a taproot. It's basically your first root. So the roots, that's basically kind of how the plant stays grounded. So those are going to really spread and start to take off first before you start to see any kind of progress. It does take a long time to grow a plant, so you want to make sure you're really patient in this process and really consistent. So as you can see, the seedling is starting to sprout, and it's growing, and right about there, when your seedling breaks the plane, that's what we call germinating. That's when you want to remove the cling wrap and you want to get it as much light as possible. When you do, the plant will grow, but if you don't, that plant will lean towards the light and eventually the plant won't really grow the way it's supposed to. I'm going to turn it back over to Haley, and she's going to talk about what Ken has done in the past couple of years.
So in the same idea of starting plants indoors, we at Kenwood have taken it to a brand new level. We plant 700 plants a year with over 30 different varieties, and we use grow lights and windowsills in the classrooms to provide the light. We sell most of them for funds at our plant sale, and use those funds to buy more supplies for next year. And some of them we keep for our own plots of garden that we have in the courtyard and in the back of the school. And here in the top, you can see the seedlings where we're planting and then removing them from the smaller starter trays as they've outgrown them. So we put them in bigger pots. And at the bottom, they are fully grown and ready to be sold. In the first video, you can see the club members planting the seeds into the starter trays. And then the second shows the shelves that we use in the classroom with the grow lights and what the plants look like after a few weeks under them. And this is an example of how close we keep the lights to the plants, as it's a very important step of the process of growing them. And lastly, this is a picture of the finished trays to be sold and planted.
All right, thanks everyone. That was awesome. Very informative. So we're going to open this up for questions from any of our visitors today. And the students or the Kenwood students will try to answer those questions for you. So feel free to either unmute or you can ask in the chat. Anybody? Well, one of the things that Sajani said that we've been doing this for a couple of years here at the school is light. You need a lot of light. That's really important. All right. And then watering, whenever you put the plant into the container, you just want to pour water into the container that you put your pots in, and then the plants will just suck up the water that they need. And then, you can go back a half hour later after you put the water in. If there's any in the bottom, you can pour it out and you'll see the soil once it dries. That's when you want to water it. And after about a half an hour of having the water in the bowl, you'll see the top of your pot will look wet again, right? So light, moisture, and then temperature are the three things that you want. And I saw that somebody put in the chat, I'm ready to plant outside. You have to be careful what you plant outside because not everything is ready yet because it's too cold and the frost will kill it. But if you have lettuce seeds or kale seeds or cabbage, beets, those kind of things you can sow directly in the ground right now and they will grow. But if you try to grow tomatoes outside now or peppers, so if you're trying to grow those things and you grow them outside, they won't grow at all. They need a warm environment. So tomatoes and things like basil and some herbs, they like really warm environments. So that's why we start them indoors early so that, so Johnny told you April 15th is sort of like the rule of thumb for the frost date here in Maryland. I usually tell my students May 1st or Mother's Day. That's a good range for when you want to take your plants from inside and plant them in the soil outside because the soil will have warmed up enough and the plants will be happy and they'll survive. But if you do happen to plant stuff a little early and the weather forecast says, oh, we might get frost tonight, you can just take like a little sheet, like a pillowcase or a sheet, and just put it over your plant to protect it for the night, and try and save it. So someone has their hand up. Whoever has their hand up, just go ahead and unmute or type in the chat.
Me?
Go ahead. Is that Promise?
Yes.
Go ahead, Promise. What's your question?
I wasn't really doing any of the stuff you were talking about right now. So how will we remember what we're supposed to do?
That's a great question. So there's two ways that you can do it right now. Like I've started our plants like weeks and weeks ago, but you can do it right now indoors. I'm going to save this video and send it to your teachers so that they can share that with you. But if you ask your parents, there's plenty of videos online that show you step by step the same thing that the students from Kenwood showed you as well. It's super easy to start in your house because a lot of times you're throwing away things that you can actually plant seeds in. The two things you need to go to the store for are the soil, which is about that bag of soil that they showed you is about $5 a bag. And then whatever seeds you want to grow, which are usually under $2 a piece. So you can do this now, Aisha. Oh, sunflowers, yeah. Sunflower seeds they grow very, very quick. That you want to start them indoors now because they don't like the frost. Lettuces you can start indoors or outdoors.
Do it today?
You could start. You could put lettuce seeds outside right now. Actually, the ground's wet, so it's going to be a mess. But you put seeds in the lettuce seeds, and lettuce seeds are teeny tiny, so you can just sprinkle them on the ground and just kind of like lightly cover them over. They don't like to be very, very deep. But your sunflowers, you probably want to start. You can start in a cup, like a paper cup or a solo cup, plastic cup, or any of the containers. I see you have some seeds. That's pretty awesome.
And I have a question about it's a PowerPoint, and so the PowerPoint maybe could get emailed as well.
Yep, I will share that with Mr. Board, and I guess you can share it with the group, the email group that you have.
Yeah.
So so I need to grow the lettuce outside?
You can start lettuce indoors, and lettuce is easier to grow than some of the other stuff. But here's the thing about lettuce. Lettuce likes cooler weather. Lettuce is not like tomatoes. Tomatoes like it to be really warm and hot, so they grow all through the summer. When it gets really hot, lettuces kind of die off. It's called bolting. They like develop flowers, and the flowers develop the seeds that you have in your baggie there. But you can grow lettuce indoors or outdoors right now. All right. There are some things that like the cold weather. There's some things that like the warm weather. And as several of the students said, you look on the back of your seed packets, and it looks like you don't have a seed packet there, but you very easily could just Google how to grow lettuce, right? And it's going to give you all kinds of tips. But lettuce is one that works well inside and outside. I have a bunch of different kind of lettuces growing at my house right now. And here's the other thing about lettuces is if you don't, like when they die off in the summer, you can just leave them alone and they'll come back in the fall, and you can have them again in the fall. The lettuces I have growing in my garden have been there for a couple of years now. They just keep coming in. So they sort of self-germinate. When they grow those flowers, the flowers drop the seeds, and the seeds just grow again. A lot of herbs will work that way. And lettuces. Good question. Any other questions? Kenwood students, do you have anything else to add that you thought of as we were going along? No? Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for participating today and paying attention. And then, if you guys do plant some seeds and you have some success, please take pictures and give them to your teachers so that they can share in the BCPS Goes Green group that we're creating. And you guys, you're elementary and middle school students, and I think it's pretty cool that you're starting to learn about how to take care of the environment and what you can do in your own home, right? Especially when we're sitting around bored, you need to get away from these devices and actually get out and do some things that and growing food is fun. I grew up in the city and I didn't have a garden, and my students talked me into doing this. And now I can't stop doing it. I grow so much. I have all the plants that we can't grow in the classroom are growing in my basement at home right now under lights. But you don't have to buy lights. You can just put it onto a sunny windowsill. So thank you very much. I'm going to send this over to your teachers so that you can go through the steps again.
And Kenwood High School students, you did amazing. What a great job. I loved all your props and you had everything all prepared, and I thought you did a wonderful job.
Yes,
So
we thought so too. I know our kids loved it from Randallstown. And how about Randallstown kids? Why don't you guys jump on my Google Meet for about 5 minutes? Because I know you're excited to plant with the seeds that I dropped off to you, okay? So
Are
we'll
you
talk
ready,
for a couple
Pam?
minutes, all right?
Okay, Miss Conley.
Okay.
And if you are a teacher, if I